Well, it's good morning over here, Jonathan. I think it's probably, 3, 4 in the afternoon there?
Yeah, it's mid-afternoon. It's a spring-like day, and the sun is shining for the first time in a very long time.
Oh, that's awesome. I'm in Minnesota. We just got more snow, and it's March 15th or whatever the heck it is. So I feel you, man. I'm really looking forward to this, Jonathan. I get a lot of the podcast brokers that reach out, like trying to get people on the show, and the amount of times I say no is ridiculous. But like, I saw your cut sheet and I was like, oh, that seems like there's a lot of meat on that bone for the story. I'm super excited for this conversation because you've been busy over the last handful of years and you got a lot of practical experience. So why don't you just kind of give me and the listeners like the flyby, and then we'll have plenty to unpack.
Yeah, sure. So I dropped out of university when I was 19. I was studying French and doing it very, very badly, and realized that if I didn't drop out, they were going to kick me out. So I left to start a small business, and I always wanted to be in business. My parents were self-employed. They weren't really business owners. They didn't see it as a business. They saw it as a job where they paid themselves rather than someone else paying them. But I'd been in that environment all my life. And I knew that I wanted a big business. Didn't really care what the business was doing. I just.
Why did you want a big business though? Like, that's super fascinating.
I guess it's a feeling of significance, a little bit of ego in there as well. I'm kind of past that stage now, by the way. And I tried different things for a few years, and then in my mid to late 20s. Really struck it lucky when I sold a publishing company that I'd started 2.5 years earlier. But the key point with this is that I made more money the day I sold it than I had in the previous 2.5 years of turning up at the office every day, hiring and firing staff, the cash flow nightmares. And then I sold it and I thought, wow, I've made all this money, and it was just a horrible business. But it was a bit of an eye-opener that you could do that. And then,
did you know that prior?
No.
Did you know like in the that's super fascinating, because one of my favorite things to dig into, Jonathan, is like when during the entrepreneurial journey people kind of like have this light bulb, like, holy crap, this thing's an asset, and it's not all about in the U.S. In the U.S. we call it the K1s, or solving for annual income. Like, how much cash can I suck out of this company versus like, what will this thing be worth at the end? So how did that mindset shift happen for you?
Well, I mean, these were different. These were different days. So this was back in 1999. So we had the internet, but it was it wasn't like it is today. There was no YouTube, there was no Facebook, there was no TED Talk. So the whole sort of acquisition, selling businesses, exiting. There wasn't a Shark Tank or a Dragon's Den show. None of that existed. So people weren't so aware of that. And I certainly wasn't. And when the buyer approached me, I thought there was a catch. I thought, there must be a catch to this. And no, they actually wanted to give me money for this business. So it took a while. To be fair, even then, it still took a while for it to dawn on me that actually I could make money buying and selling businesses. But because I had that startup mentality, what did I do? I went and started another business. And that was a really, really good business. That did make money. That made a lot of money.
Which one?
So it was a business called the Coaching Academy. And we were right there at the beginning of the whole life coaching thing, which is now very, very mature. Everyone's been there and done it. We were the largest in the world, the largest life coach training school in the world. And we had thousands and thousands of students, all offline. We didn't do anything online.
The amount of I used to be in the paper copier business, Jonathan. You were probably our best friend.
Yeah. No, absolutely. We were producing the manuals. We were hiring the conference rooms. And this was between 1999 and 2007. So there was no Facebook. We used AdWords to drive most of our business, very proactive with the marketing, and we built a sizable business. And then an interesting opportunity came along, which was to buy our major competitor. And this was a company that was still also based in the UK, nibbling at our heels, annoying us for 5 years. And they were
were they there prior to you guys starting the business, or
no? They were founded by a client of mine.
Oh, no
who
way.
went and got some of my staff to go and work for him. So
I see that slight grin on your face, which means I'm sure there's a couple emotions underneath that.
there was a very strong competitive tension.
Oh, man.
There was it actually got me out of bed every morning and made me go and push a little bit harder because of these competitors. So when the opportunity came along to buy them, it was an opportunity that I couldn't miss.
Yeah, I'm time to stick it to you, right? I mean,
exactly. Exactly. So awesome. I did the deal with the owner in 4 days. So from finding out about it to owning it took just 4 days.
Oh my gosh.
So when people say, they've been looking at a business for 18 months and sort of trying to figure out how to buy it and everything, that's because they don't have a system. They don't have a process. And I developed a system. I developed a process. I had a very good lawyer that helped a lot. And from finding out about them on the Monday afternoon, I owned that business Friday afternoon of the same week. And then but no one knew, just the owner and his son. So on the Monday morning, I went into the office of my competitors and it's like, how did he get in? He's not allowed in here.
A Trojan horse, here we are.
Exactly. And someone, and I promise you this is so true, someone opened their desk drawer, took out my book with my picture on the front, looked at it, looked at me, and then walked out in disgust.
That's awesome.
So it was
that worth the whole purchase price there?
I got my money's worth there.
That's awesome.
Absolutely. So that was an interesting experience. We merged that business into ours and created a far larger business. It removed a lot of the marketing friction. So a lot of our marketing was about competing with them. Who was going to be at the top of Google? So our ad spend was quite high. So remove them from the market. And actually our ad spend came down, which increased our profitability. Our sales went up as well because the sales weren't being split between them and us. And we had a very, very good business.
Like true definition of the synergies on top of that. What was the size of the total team after the acquisition?
Oh, a team in staff members. So I had at that point, let me think. So that was 2006. So I had about 23 maybe. They had maybe 17. We didn't take all of their staff. I mean, they didn't want to work for the competitor. I did actually have a really good. They had a great graphic designer, fantastic graphic designer. So I took him, and that really improved all of our marketing and advertising. Cool. That really was a huge benefit. And a couple of customer service people for the transition of the customers over. And then I thought, well, this is now the time to sell. We're on an upward growth curve. And I think so many owners leave it till they are at the top of the growth curve, or worse, on the way back down the other side. And the entrepreneurially minded person is always saying, next year is going to be better.
Been there myself.
Yeah, we say next week's going to be better. Next month's going to be better. Don't worry about this poor quarter. Next quarter is going to be amazing. But next year is always going to be better. And next year isn't always better. The
last 3-4 years have been proof of that, right?
It's knowing when to get out, and it's getting that timing right. And it's more luck than judgment in many cases.
There's really interesting, just a small comment on that is I have Brian Billio from ITR Economics has been on the show now, doing this regular quarterly deal. In ITR Economics is a Vistage speaker too, Jonathan. So they go around, they're acting or practicing economists. So they have this leading indicator, this book called or Make Your Move, where you're tying to the business cycles of all these different data points. So, and it's two points of my story here is that one is that they actually, in their book, they were saying legitimately they will go in and onboard a client and the owner's like, oh, it's great. And they're headed right into the downward part of the cycle. And people are like, yeah, it's great. So it's like, even us entrepreneurs who think it's always great, just lie or we just ignore the data because of our desire for control.
We're way too optimistic for our own good. And, optimism is if you, I've had lots of meetings with private equity firms. I've done about 25 pitches, and the optimism of the entrepreneurial founder compared to the very conservative, very prudent, cautious approach to private equity, it's two completely different people. But that's another story.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So I thought, this is the time to get out. And I felt like the market was changing. I felt like demand might start to drop off because, I was riding a wave of popularity, late 1990s, early 2000s. Life coaching, business coaching is all the rage. And there was more and more competition. And I started to feel, this could go wrong at some point. Now, I was actually wrong about that because
it's like a $5 billion industry now or something like that.
I did sell that business, and but I sold that business. So I sold that business in 2007. So that's 10, 13, 16 years ago, and it's still going strong. So It didn't fall off a cliff. It didn't. The market didn't collapse. It had at least another 16 years left.
Any regrets of selling it?
No, I think that I had done my time. I was ready for a new challenge. And I must admit, I didn't really see where I could take it next. Knowing what I know now, then there were so many things that we didn't do. We didn't really make the most of the internet. But then it was 2007 and maybe, video.
People were still putting the URLs on car wrappers.
Yeah, they were. Yeah, exactly that. And it was CompuServe and AOL and all of those things. So it was. So I don't regret it. I think that I probably never appreciated what an amazing business it was. It was an incredible business. I mean,
what's your definition of an incredible business?
Well, the clients loved what we did. That made life so much better. It wasn't a difficult business to run. It felt like it at times, but it wasn't really a difficult business to run. And it was a profitable business. I was
going to say cash flow, man. It's okay. It's okay to say dividends.
It was like guilty to say it was a really profitable business.
Yeah, right.
And actually, it was a profitable business with reasonably little effort. If I'd recruited some really good people to run different aspects of it, it could have doubled in size very easily. Knowing
Let's put a pin in that. I want to come back to that. And also as you continue to go down your story, Jonathan, kind of just plant some seeds. Come talk about how you went about acquiring these and selling, kind of more of the mechanics of that. But sure. I'm liking the story first, but we can kind of come back to that because I think what you just said is a huge fork in the road that a lot of people have is, do I hire someone to run this asset, or do I actually sell my job and my asset at the same time? And there's this huge kind of dilemma that people don't necessarily understand the difference of those two. You can kind of just use that however you want throughout the conversation. So I want to keep you going, but it's fascinating that you brought that up.
So I was actually looking at buying another business to bolt onto it, and I approached I approached all of the big training companies in this sector around the world. The biggest one in the US is called Coach University. I don't even know if they're still around. I'm sure they are, because it's a very good business. So I approached Coach University. Anyone I could find, but I couldn't do a deal of the size that I was looking for. Lots of smaller businesses. I was looking for a larger one, and I thought this is the time to sell. Made the decision on the 1st of January 2007, sold it November the 17th, 2007, to a London-based private equity firm. They sold it on about 5 years after that, and it's currently owned, actually. It was sold in a management buyout. It's currently owned by someone that I recruited as a trainer back in 2005.
Oh, cool. So that's awesome. How does it make you feel?
Stayed in the family. Yeah, I mean, it's certainly being well looked after. I mean, she knows what she's doing. So yeah, it's got a very fond place in my heart because that business actually rescued my financial life. It was a really pivotal moment for me, and it allowed me to do things which I still live in the house that the sale of that business bought for me.
Oh, that's so cool. So what about the first situation, the first sale, led to some sort of rescuing that was needed?
So what was the connection?
Because you sold one business, right, and then the publishing business was the second one, right? Did I catch that right?
Yeah. So the first business sale was the publishing business.
Okay, so and the second one was the coaching business. I'm sorry, I got those inverted.
Yeah.
So, but that business, the second business, the coaching business that you sold, you said saved your financial life.
Well, so not so much the sale of it, but the actual the business itself.
Oh, got it.
So the backstory to that was that I had the publishing business, as I said, it made some money one month, it made a bit of a loss the next month. It wasn't a great business, but in the background, I was running up some credit cards. I couldn't afford to fix my car. I had some arrears on my mortgage, which apparently is quite a serious thing. You're meant to pay it every month, but so I was getting some unpleasant letters, and the sale of the publishing business was a good thing, but the start of the next business was the life-changing thing.
Got it. Totally makes sense.
And I went from someone who had to check the price of the groceries before buying them to someone who could, I could buy my parents a new car. I paid off my sister's credit card bills. I was able to do things that I felt worthy all of a sudden.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I didn't have that. On one occasion, I remember the embarrassment of being at the supermarket and not having enough money to pay for the groceries at the counter and having to put some things back.
Oh
and I
my
thought,
God.
That's just not good. I should not be in this situation. So
will that feeling ever leave you?
No, it's interesting you should say that actually, but I still don't like opening my post, my mail.
Isn't that crazy?
My mail.
Yeah.
Because I remember how terrifying it was that there could be another bill that I can't pay and another bill that I can't pay. And there's the utilities and there's my phone. And, I'm past worrying about whether I can pay the bills, but I still.
But it's still there, yeah.
Yeah, I opened some posts today, and it's kind of I leave it for a few days. No, I've got to do it, Jonathan. Man up, open the post. It's like a trauma I carry with me.
Oh no, it's PTSD, man, for sure. I definitely have plenty of random quirks like that from a decade ago. I mean, it's just a small comment, Jonathan. It's so ridiculous because when my dad and I went through our hardship in the business and we had cash flow, major cash flow issues because we were incorrectly financed. We were essentially financing our receivables for like 11 years. We had no line of credit really. And so 08 and 09 hit us like a ton of bricks. And I interviewed like 17 banks. No bank would give us financing, even an SBA loan that's backed by the freaking government. And now everybody gets free money. And back then I was asking like waitresses and waiters for capital. I was asking anybody that could, until money was always scarce, man. And now it's like, even though it's just everywhere, I'm still like shocked from it. I mean, it's a thing that, to your point, and I appreciate you sharing, it doesn't go away.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have a 7-year-old daughter, and I explain to her that when she asks for another toy, that someone, i.e. me, has to work in order to create so she realizes that it doesn't just come from nowhere.
Oh, is that awesome, dude? Oh, that's awesome.
There is a link. So when daddy's working, daddy's paying for your toys.
That's awesome.
A little harsh on a 7-year-old, but it's just.
Oh no, I got my 6.5-year-olds, man. The plow guy was out recently, and Megan, my wife, was explaining that she's Venmoing the plow guy, and we're giving the plow guy some money, but he has to work for that, right? Is what she said, and I was like, yes,
exactly.
I'm sorry, I digress a lot, but go back. So the coaching business gets you out of that rut.
Absolutely.
How did that change your mindset and what you thought about the future and what you were planning on doing?
Well, it frees up your mind, doesn't it? If you're worrying about money and paying the bills, you're thinking about today. You're not thinking expansively. You're not thinking about what's possible. And as soon as you remove that concern about, can I get through today, this week, this month, you start thinking more strategically. You think bigger, and I've never worked for anyone else. I've never had a job, I've always done my own thing. And, I know just from, listening to talk radio, many people in the UK and around the world are often trapped in a salary that is not enough to get beyond paying what is required to get through life. There's never enough left over to
even
do
if you straight line. I totally agree with you, Jonathan. And like, after we sold in 2014, I had like an 18-month deal ish where I was doing some finance and wealth management. And I just looked at the straight line math and I'm like, you have two couples. If you have a couple that both make a bunch of money and they maxed out their retirement, like now it's like 20 grand each. You look at the straight line math. I'm like, that's still a son of a bitch to retire.
Yeah.
That's at the end of the rainbow if everything goes well. And so to your point, like there's a lot of hope that the system stays in place to make sure it all works.
I know. So I was very proud of my daughter when this weekend she was making a list. And I said, what are you doing? She's making a list of businesses that she could have.
That's awesome, man.
Ice cream business, hairdressing business. So
that's awesome.
So I sold to private equity. Financially, that was a life-changing deal. And I'm still very grateful that I had that.
Did you roll some equity in there, and did you have a role with your leadership?
No,
no way.
And I'll tell you why I was exited right at the point of closing. It was because it was what we call a bimbo, which is a buy-in management buyout. So someone, a particular individual, had seen that my business was for sale and thought, I want to run that business. And he had some capital, and he went to some private equity people that he knew, and he said, I'll put some money in, you fund the rest of it, and I'll run that business for you. So he wanted me out because he wanted my job.
So that first, oh my God, so awesome. Because I don't know if you've heard of Walker Diable, the acquisition entrepreneur search funds. I think we should have a campaign to change that title to Bimbo.
Yeah,
because it's essentially the same thing, right? Where you have one individual that wants to do the role, has some upside in the equity because they don't have enough capital.
Yes.
And
buy-in
awesome.
Management buyout.
So awesome.
You don't actually hear that phrase very often these days, I've noticed, but back then in the 2000s, we talked about that a lot. So that was amazing. I went and bought some real estate and house, sort of family-sized house, and some rentals.
Why did you choose the private equity in that situation?
Sorry, how did I?
Yeah, why did you choose them versus? And then were you ready to go to market?
No, we actually, my advisor and I looked at several different opportunities, and we looked at their funding structure. We looked at their ability to follow through on the deal, and the one thing that is massively in favor of private equity is that they are professional about it. So they said we'd have a term sheet by the end of the week, and there it was. We kind of did the usual. We want some proof that you got the equity, and there was the letter from the bank the next day. I mean, so they're really on it, really awesome. On the ball.
Cool.
And I think I vaguely keep in touch with them today, and I think they're a great organization.
That's awesome. So then, I mean, I can't even imagine the mindset shift, like you were saying, it's more expansive. So then what did you start thinking about to do? And I don't know if it was money that you got at closing that was retirement amount, or obviously you invest in some real estate. So what do you do with your mind and your purpose and what you're going to be focused on?
Well, this was the problem, because I had a terrible work-life balance, and I didn't have any hobbies, any interests. I didn't play golf. How do you fill your time? And my friends were all working, so I couldn't just say let's go and hang out for a few days, because they said, no, Jonathan, I've got to go to work.
Totally.
So I didn't have anything to do, and I was by myself. And what made it even worse, my girlfriend at the time, she worked for that business, so she was coming home every day and saying, oh, they're doing this and they're doing that. So I was kind of like. And it was in
left out, FOMO, alone.
It was located on the main street of the town that I was living in, and I drive past it every day as well. So it's not good for your mental health. So
Totally.
I felt I needed to do something quickly, and I love speaking to groups. I love talking about M&A and my experiences. So I did a few conference presentations talking about how I did the deal and everything, because people were interested. When you meet someone who sold a business, people always want to know, don't they? They want to know, how do you do it? How do you structure it? So I did some conferences, and I was looking around for the next thing, and I did several things that I'm picking out the more interesting things to tell. I won't tell you about the things.
I was going to say, otherwise we could be here for a couple of years. But no, I get it. Totally.
Here's a good one. So I bought a group of 7 digital marketing businesses from a private equity fund, and the deal took 12 weeks, which is ridiculously long, seeing as I only paid $1 for these businesses. I don't know how we could take 12 weeks to negotiate $1. But it started off, they wanted some serious money, and it ended up being $1.
$1.
And it was a very, very complicated deal. I mean, my legals were about let me put this into dollars, about $200,000. Because nothing that private equity does is straightforward and simple. It was just unbelievable amounts of paperwork. But I ended up with a business that was doing about $7 million of annual revenue, digital marketing, search engine optimization, Facebook ads, video production, social media, the usual things, web design. And the problem was, and the reason I could buy it for $1 was that it was losing money, unsurprisingly. And I knew why it was losing money. It was overstaffed. They had 85 staff. Couldn't understand what
85 on 7 million in revenue.
Yeah,
for an agency, holy buckets!
And I'm walking around this building, two level building, and I'm
nice. Why not? Right?
What are they doing? I'm thinking, if that was now, what I would have been thinking was, I could replace all these people with artificial intelligence.
And we're working from home, so the $7 million business, as is normal, just remove all the stuff.
So it was overstaffed. But that wasn't really their fault. It was the fault of the management. And the management were taking $200,000 salaries, driving beautiful Audis that were parked up outside, and really making the most of being part of this business. And that was one of the reasons why I was losing money. So I got rid of them on day one. That was a pretty tough call, but they had to go immediately. And we slimmed down the business to rescue it, and we ended up with a smaller business. So we stopped doing all the things that were losing money. Yeah, the web design department, I mean, it was terrible. It was really terrible. They were underquoting on jobs, so the job was actually costing more to deliver than they were getting in revenue. So I closed that down. Closed down social media, which wasn't very good anyway. Closed down the video production that didn't do very much. So I slimmed down the number of people and focused on the advertising, the AdWords and the Facebook, and the search engine optimization, which is more profitable. The more profitable.
Yep. So question on that. So as you, and it kind of goes into, again, planting the seed for kind of your overall, like, as we probably wrap up the conversation, overall thoughts on M&A and valuations and stuff like that. But like, when you think about you assessing like what you can do with that company if you were to take it over, did you know if you were going to have the data to make those decisions? Because like what you said makes sense, but I think like there's a lot of times that people buy a company. Also kind of goes back to your earlier comment about, selling that fast. It's like assessing, do you have the information and how much truth is in whatever it is that you're getting? Because all of those strategies make sense and what to do, but it's like, if you're just guessing, that's a whole different set of problems.
Yeah, so they had, because they were private equity owned, they had quite detailed financials.
Okay.
Now, whether they were accurate or not is another matter. Because you don't really know unless you do them yourself. But they did have quite detailed financials. And they were thinking, the reason they were doing loss-making web design is because they said that then brought in the SEO clients. But I was thinking quite short-term. I was thinking, I'm going to buy this and I'm going to sell it as fast as possible. I'm not going to hang around. This has to be sold quickly. Now, I was on an anti-embarrassment clause in the sale and purchase agreement, which meant that I couldn't sell it for 6 months. So I waited.
Anti-embarrassment clause. I don't know if that's something. I don't know. Maybe one of the listeners can prove me wrong, but I have not heard of that in the U.S.
So the purpose of it is probably called something different. The purpose of it is that if we sell you this business for $1, and then you go and sell it for $100,000 the day after, we're going to look pretty stupid. We're going to be embarrassed by that.
They actually have something called the anti-embarrassment clause. I don't know how I feel about that. I'm gonna have to process that one. That's
it's actually reasonably common here. It's
interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, fascinating.
And it's to stop people from feeling they can make a fast buck out of a situation.
Yeah. Interesting. It's like hitting like a speed bump, but in deal flow.
So it was a 6 month agreement not to do anything. So I waited six months and 1 day. 6 months and 1 day. And it took me about 12 weeks again to sell the business. And I sold it. So my ownership was 11 months. So I only owned it for 11 months. And it went from 5 million of revenue with 85 staff to 3 million of revenue with 12 staff. So very, very profitable. And that 3 million was recurring billing with the SEO contracts and so on. So I sold it to a competitor doing a similar sort of business who were delighted to get their hands on another, 1,000 customers or whatever it was. Really delighted to do that. And it was a great deal. And I sold it for approximately $2 million.
Wow.
So
were you concerned about like the turmoil that there was 12 or 15 people that were still there were going to go through? Did you converse with them? Did they have stay bonoses, or how did you make sure that they didn't?
So I put in place a manager who's also a business coach. So I don't know whether you come across Action International, the Action Coaching. So he was an Action coach, and I knew him because he'd actually been a client of mine at one point. So he was very, very good with people. He's far better with people. I'm not so good with the people side of things. So I let him do that. And he really, he looked after everyone. There was a lot of that sort of remorse, and our friends have gone, which is another reason why I had to sell this business really quickly. Because if half a dozen people walked out on Friday, didn't come back, then I wouldn't have a business to sell. So I pushed through the deal, and it was a good deal. Now, despite that being a good deal, I never ever recommend to anyone that they buy a distressed business. Because you may only pay $1 for it, but you will pay in time, anxiety,
emotional stress,
sleepless nights, and you might even have to put money in to keep it going. So never buy a $1 business unless you know exactly what you're doing.
Well, you make me feel a little bit better about my old situation 15 years ago. It's like, I don't think we should do an internal buyout when we got some hair on this. So yeah, I mean, it's tough work, man. I mean, like pulling that plane up from a nosedive it's a different skill set than managing a bunch of cash flow with a lot of breathing room.
Yeah, absolutely. And never say never, but right now I'm not sure if I'm really at the stage in life I want to go through that sort of thing again. I mean,
why would you want to, right?
Well, it's far better to buy a successful, profitable business that's making money. Because if it's making money before you buy it, and you take the owner out and it's still making money, that money's all yours from the very first day that you own it. So that is far more appealing, I think. And all of the people that I help buy businesses, it's always, let's buy a successful, profitable business. Don't get caught up in the $1 deals. So let's just fast forward to the pandemic, if that's okay. Because I think this is an interesting. I bought 48 businesses during the pandemic. And people ask me what advice I would give them about buying 48 businesses during the pandemic. And I would say, don't buy 48 businesses.
I'm sitting here. Well, that was part of your cut sheet. I'm just like, I got so many questions, man. Like
during a pandemic, and you know what? It was so stressful, and I actually ended up in hospital as a result of that stress. So I overdid it. I probably overestimated my ability to handle multiple situations at the same time. We were closing on sometimes 2 deals a week. It was whoa.
So
that was hard work.
Why did you go about doing that?
Well, it was a strategy. And whether it was the right strategy or the wrong strategy, I'm still not entirely sure. But the strategy was this. At the beginning of the pandemic, really about 3 years ago, from
like damn near right now, yeah.
This,
Like this, actually, like this next Friday. Tomorrow's Friday. It'll be like 3 years to the day. It was like, oh crap, it's all shutting down.
Yeah, exactly. And I was on the phone to my business partner, standing behind where I'm sitting now, leaning up against that mantelpiece, and we were saying, look, we've got two options. We pull back on our expansion plans. We had 5 locations for that business at that point. Or
what was the business?
Ahead. So this is childcare, kindergarten education.
Yeah. Wow.
So we had 5 locations. Do we push ahead or do we pull back? And we decided to push ahead. And all of our competitors who are private equity backed stopped acquiring. Everyone stopped because they didn't know what was going to happen. And private equity likes certainty. But we were entrepreneurial and we thrive in uncertainty.
Roll the dice.
So it was an interesting situation because everyone else stopped buying in that sector. So we were the only buyers. But everyone wanted to sell because of the uncertainty. So the uncertainty stopped the buyers, but the uncertainty created sellers.
Oh my God. So you were the one market maker, essentially.
So we had all the business brokers come to us where we'd not used them before. We hadn't sort of paid any interest to them. And it went a little bit crazy. And it was
a little bit, 48 businesses, yeah. Jonathan.
But Ryan, it was too crazy. It was, I cannot explain the whirlwind that we were in, where we bought so many businesses. Linda, my business partner, and I would be having a conversation, and we wouldn't know which one. I'd be saying, no, it's the one up on the hill. And she goes, what? Which one up on the hill? I said, I don't know what it's called. It's the one on the hill. And she goes, is it the one with the green door? I said, I don't know. I've never been to one with a green door. Is there one with a green door? So, I mean, that's not right. That's not what's meant to happen. So the cause of the stress was that we did not have a good management team. Because pre-COVID, it was we didn't need a management team because the business wasn't big enough, so we didn't need a good management team. During COVID, we had a furlough scheme here where people could stay at home, not work, and still be paid. So we couldn't recruit people to come and work for us because they say, "Well, why would I get paid to come and work for you when I can get paid to stay at home? I'll wait till COVID's all over." And of course, it lasted longer than we thought it was going to last. I mean, the first lockdown in the UK was 3 weeks. And naively, I thought this was going to be over in 3 weeks.
So how many of those LOIs did you dish out in those 3.5 weeks of those 48 businesses?
We just went crazy. So,
oh my gosh, yeah.
So we were getting very, very good deals. Sometimes we were paying practically nothing at all, paying very, very little. Very, very good deals. Probably only a couple that we overpaid on. But in the scheme of things, that's a very small percentage.
Right. So where were you guys, you don't have to give any numbers if you don't want, but like capital source and what, like debt to equity, how you were applying that? Because the way I'm kind of thinking about this, Jonathan, is like, I just got done doing one of the economic and M&A updates, and we were talking about kind of the activity of private equity versus strategics right now. And private equity, even though they've got the $1.5 trillion, already committed that they have to buy companies with, they've pulled back a little bit because my guess is they're all recalculating their IRRs of what they can actually pay in the debt to equity structure. So they're back to the drawing board of the modeling so they can hit the IRR to the people that they raised the money from originally. And so that's why I'm asking this question of like, I'm assuming they all pulled back at this moment too, because they're trying to figure out like how they're going to do everything. So what was your guys' mandate? Where was the money? Was it your guys' money? Was it, some of your equity and debt and from banks? I'm just kind of curious of what was driving and allowing this.
Well, no one was lending. We actually had a funding line that was pulled on March 24th, 2020. So we didn't have any external funding. So we did all of this entirely from cash flow.
Wow.
So that made it tough as well, because our competitors were, again, the private equity backed competitors were sitting on, tens of millions. And then the more established businesses in the sector were able to apply for government-backed loans that were helping businesses during COVID, and we couldn't do that because we were too new a business. So we were trapped in this sort of we couldn't raise debt, so we had to do it a different way. So we had to just be better at negotiating the price down, structuring the deal. In some of the acquisitions, the seller paid us. Exactly.
Just to get rid of the liabilities or something like that.
Well, what had happened in the cases I'm thinking of is that the seller had received income for services they'd not yet provided. So they had to give us that income, and that income effectively, part of it was given back to them. Part of their own money was given back to them for the acquisition.
Holy buckets, man! Where along that timeline did you know that you were holding on to a dragon's tail?
So we had the opportunity to bring on board a private equity investor about 18 months after we started. And it was an amazing deal. It was a £100 million valuation. They were going to put £20 million into the business for 20%. They were minority investors.
Were they going to? Did they want you to keep it in there, or were you able to take that money out?
You ask all the right questions. You're absolutely right. So £10 million, which is about $12-13 million, stayed in, and then shareholders, Linda and myself, £10 million out.
Pulled out. Okay. Yeah. Because I know that people get a little oh, we got this money. Oh wait, we have to keep it in here. Oh wait, I don't get it, and now I have a boss.
Yeah.
Wait a second. It sounds way cooler than it is.
I wouldn't have done it if I hadn't been able to cash out and de-risk. And so we went through a three-month period of exclusivity. We love it. 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 Oh, we don't love it. You're too early stage. I thought, but you knew that right from the start. But it was just
right.
It was just the way it was. But it was very, very disappointing. But during that time, during that period of exclusivity, we weren't allowed to go and talk to any debt providers or any equity investors, understandably, because what if we went and found a debt provider that got us it was a better deal over. So
refinance the whole thing and keep it.
So it actually set us back a little bit on our sort of journey for funding, and also we'd bought businesses during lockdowns and closures. And I think it's fair to say in some sectors, the standard of delivery reduced because there wasn't any ongoing training, staff development took a back seat, motivation levels went down, people didn't want to go back to work. So there wasn't the teamwork there. And a lot of people really don't like uncertainty in general. So some people left the sector and went and worked in a supermarket instead because the pay rates over here for childcare are very, very low.
Oh my God, Jonathan. I mean, honestly, man, I sit here and as you're explaining it, because I got daughters that are 6.5. So 3 years ago, they were 3.5. I was the customer of these childcare centers. We went through 4. There was the first one, Jonathan, that we loved that their kids were going to. And you probably don't have them because the VFW, it's like, actually, this is terrible. I don't know what VFW stands for. Veterans Foreign Affairs, or anyways, that's terrible. I apologize, listeners, any vets. I would truly apologize. But the VFW is like, it's like these bars that, vets will go into. And I'm like, all of a sudden, it was like all like the bar across the street, everybody was taking care of our kids. I was like, what's going on here? Like all of a sudden, all the teachers that we knew were gone. And then the lockdowns up and down, like the amount of uncertainty from just the standard of care, let alone I can't even imagine the cash flow nightmare of that, man. Like, oh my gosh.
Well, let me compound it even more for you. We were operating in quite deprived areas of the country. And then at the beginning of 22, we started to have our utility bills increase.
Oh shit! Because
of fuel bills went higher, and then utility, And even here today in my home, my bill is double what it was a year ago.
Oh, I know. I've been watching your guys' energy prices, Jonathan.
Yeah.
I mean, I get it, man.
So then
crap.
people say, look, do we pay the bill to keep the heating on, or do we put our child into kindergarten, into nursery? And they would choose the heating. So, and then, we were working in lots of areas where there was government funding and then a bit of a top up from the parents. And getting $100 out of people sometimes is really difficult. Really, really difficult. Where, if we'd been in a different part of the country where, people were paying, down in London, people paying $2,000 a month for childcare. That's a more resilient business model because they're private payers rather than it's government money plus.
Got it.
It's a different model.
So interesting. It is. And like, there's a lot, it's mainly private here in the US. I mean, like, dude, like Jonathan, like I always say, like on a scale of 1 to 10 of the daycare, our kids were going to a center because there's not a lot of in-home ones around here. And so our kids were going to centers and I'd rate them like a 6 out of 10, man. Like they're not doing sign language, learning Spanish. There's no nurse on staff. And it's more than my mortgage. It was $3,000 a month. And I'm sitting going, they went to daycare, got mac and cheese that I would have given them at home. That's a 99-cent box, and they're alive. Yeah. And I'm like, I don't know how everybody else is doing this. Honestly, is like all I continue to think.
Yeah, so there were all these different economic situations, and at the same time, my health was suffering, which caught me by surprise. I mean, I had stomach pains that I couldn't stand up straight. One particular night, I know that I was awake all night because the pains were keeping me awake. So I went to the doctor. Doctor sent me in for a colonoscopy, which is not the most
fun.
Enjoyable.
Yeah, fun stuff.
Enjoyable situation. And actually, the colonoscopy was clear. I mean, they were looking for something serious, and there was nothing there, which. And I kind of almost hoped they were going to find an ulcer or something, but no, it was all stress related. And I went to a hypnotherapist to help me sleep because I've been taking sleeping tablets for 2 years. And the hypnotherapist, which was really helpful, she said to me, "Have you considered psychotherapy?" And I went, "What do you? I don't need psychotherapy. Why you ask?" Because in the UK we don't talk about psychotherapy. Okay. It's not a subject people talk about. And
over in the US, everybody's got one now.
Exactly. And she said, "I think you're carrying a lot of worries and concerns." And so I did the psychotherapy that was very helpful. And then we had an issue on one particular day where there were 2 accidents in 2 of the locations on the same day, and child broke a wrist and an arm, and it's like, oh my goodness. And so all of this was really getting on top of me. So I made a judgment call. The judgment call was, this business is not going to get easier to run. It's, if anything, it's going to get harder. We call it the cost of living crisis. I don't know whether you call it that. Yeah, in the US, yeah. So
it's like, it's just inequality. But you talk, I mean, like it's really interesting. That's where I was going with my $3,000 a month comment, Jonathan. Is like when I look in, regardless of whatever, I do not care what political spectrum people are on. When I look at the economy like a machine, like we all have to make enough money because everybody needs enough money to pay for the shit that you and I as business owners provide, right? Like if they don't have money, we don't get money. And I look at all the kids in the daycare centers. I'm like, are there really that many people that can afford $36,000 after tax to send the kids? Yes. And I too. Yeah. And I'm sitting there going, there's no way. And if you look at the percentages and you just go down, like there's not that many clientele unless there's going to be some subsidies behind this. So I agree. There's the pinch point in those services that everybody needs, but then you can't apply AI yet anyways, maybe to daycare center teachers.
No. But yeah, actually talking about the teachers, I had 375 staff.
Oh my gosh.
And I've already told you earlier on, I'm not a people person. So that was like a living nightmare for me.
So wait, you have 300 something teachers and you're working with kids and you're not a
so I didn't actually interact too much directly with the staff.
Right.
But I said to one manager who I really liked, I liked this woman very much. I thought we got on very, very well. And I said to her, when I went to visit her location, I said to her, great. I said, you're doing a fantastic job, really good. You just need to get the numbers up. We just need to get the occupancy up now. But well done, well done. And off I went, thinking nothing of it. She put in a complaint about me.
I'm sorry, I shouldn't laugh, but it's kind of funny.
She complained to me about me for I was putting her under unnecessary pressure. And it was like, oh, I can't do this anymore. So I made a judgment call. I thought, if I place my health and my family first, I've got a business here that if I can't raise finance for it, it's always going to be a struggle. And I don't.
Were you making ends meet? So like, was there any like major liquidity crisis or cash flow crisis, or was it?
There was typically towards the end of every month, because our payroll was $500,000 a month.
Got it.
So
Got it.
we had to find $500,000 every single month. And if the parents didn't pay us fast enough, remember, the only source of income was from our customers. We didn't have private equity money sitting there. So every single month, the last 2 weeks of the month, I would sometimes leading up to the very end, the end of the month, I would be looking at the bank account balance every single hour. Yeah.
Oh, Jonathan, man. I can feel it from here. Because my dad and I, we juggled a $240,000 payroll every 2 weeks.
Right.
And the wire, we'd have to have the cash in the bank on Thursday night for the wire to be transferred for Friday. And we'd hit that every 2 weeks, like, oh, let's go to the cabin and have a Captain Morgan. You know, it's just like, and that anxiety is just like you get, because you have to have all that stuff land perfectly for that wire to happen.
Oh, absolutely. And it was very close to the wire sometimes. And I thought, you know what, this isn't fun anymore. It was fun for a while. It's not fun anymore. So I sold my shares in the business, my stock in the business to my business partner. So she owned 100%. Now, at the same time, she'd been looking
Did she want that, or was she just better off than you were at that point?
Well, she'd been talking to an equity partner who would come in, but the equity partner would turn me into a minority anyway. So either I continued and became a minority in my own business, or I basically bowed out completely at that point, which is what I did. And then she did a deal with this.
And when was that?
Last year, last summer.
Oh, man, what a story. What have you been doing since?
Well, I took a holiday. So I went on a cruise.
So.
Almost immediately, I went on a cruise and enjoyed my daughter was away with her mother at that point, and I went away for a week and just enjoyed a cruise. And I've been on a few holidays since. And what I really love doing is helping other business owners buy businesses and other entrepreneurs buy businesses. So I've doubled down on that. And I sit in front of Zoom most of the day, either mentoring people or running mentoring groups on Zoom. I've got a day at a conference center tomorrow with a group of my clients that I'm really looking forward to. So that's how I relax.
Oh, that's awesome, man. And so I want to go back just a little bit and so kind of give you a couple like concepts, and then ways of thinking that I have really gravitated towards over the last decade, Jonathan, of like what, is it worth it? It really is this big question that like, it's crazy, man. Like when I was telling you when we first hit record, do a lot of speaking, and I'm asking people now, like, do you know if what you're doing is worth it as a business owner and leader? And not a lot of people can raise their hand immediately.
Interesting.
Which is crazy. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
Because like I don't fill in the blank. It could be lifestyle, it could be money, it could be whatever it is. Because everybody can make up their own. Is it worth it to you? But they don't know it, and which means that they don't even. Because like you can answer your yes, I know it's not worth it, and like immediately raise your hand and be like, I want out. But the fact that there's that many people not knowing is just so fascinating to me. And so kind of this lens of art, we have these 5 principles in our training that we have. The first one's your vision. Like, what do you want from the business, your role, your legacy, the intangible stuff. The second principle is your financial targets. And the reason I'm bringing this up, Jonathan, is because as you're telling me your story, I'm just curious, like where your personal financial freedom, you don't have to tell me any numbers, just wondering like how much was stuck in that business versus not. Because when I think about the pressure that we hold, it's like, sure, my dad and I had a 21 million revenue business, but we didn't have like a pot to piss in for liquidity. So everyone's like, oh, you guys are fine. But it's like, again, if it's $240,000 every 2 weeks, I mean, like it could go away like that technically.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to gauge the level of personal financial stress that you were under while this was all happening. Is the question making sense without disclosing?
Personally, as it happens, I wasn't personally. So to me, the individual and the business were sort of separate, very separate entities. But I took it personally. I was personally involved because there was never going to be a situation where the staff weren't paid. I mean, there was no way I would let that. I just wouldn't let that happen. You know, so you know, I had people on the phone actually phoning the parents and saying, "You need to pay today," because we had to get that money in. So that took its toll a little bit because it's not an enjoyable environment to be in. And I just knew that, unless we got sort of $5 million, to really push the business forward, that wasn't going to happen fast. It wasn't going to happen via debt, because if you've got that cash flow that's a bit choppy, you can't service debt.
I was just going to say, if you were to throw probably a $10,000 monthly payment on that, it would have probably been enough to. Yeah, breaks. That's mine. Mine was the same situation, which is why it's so funny, Jonathan. This is essentially why I'm so passionate about finance, because I never was. Now it's like, well, in order to actually not have all that stress, if I learn this stuff, then it doesn't have to be that hard.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And so I was actually quite content to walk away. Despite the fact that I put lots of effort into the business in the previous of 2.5 years, I was really quite content to walk away. And you live to fight another day, and there's always other opportunities. I'm constantly looking at businesses, today.
How are you? Sorry to interrupt, but how did you deal with that mental chatter, if you had it? I shouldn't assume I'm the entrepreneur. I go through to go through to completion. This is my reputation. All of that stuff, I think, is what kind of, to our earlier point of the conversation, is what is constantly making us think around the next corners, more opportunities. How did you reconcile the maybe tomorrow, this is my identity, my pride, my ego, compared to your health and family?
Well, I'd done something that no one had ever done in that sector before. Gone from zero to the 4th largest provider in the sector, and that's just not me saying that. That was actually in a there's an annual league table published by the industry magazine. So we're the 4th largest in the UK, and I'm still very, very proud of that. We're just always undercapitalized, which is just the way it was. Part of the opportunity was buying during the pandemic, but part of the downside is we couldn't get finance during a pandemic. So it was just the way it was good and bad at the same time. And I did a couple of sessions with my clients, with my advisory clients, and they actually told me because I told them the whole story. I told them how it all worked and what worked, what didn't work, and they said it was the best session I'd ever done. And people coming up to me and saying, "I'm proud of you." And I thought that wasn't quite the reaction I was expecting, but it's okay. I'm okay with that reaction. I got trolled a lot on social media. One particular person, sort of, who's kind of a bit of a stalker, just was writing about me every day. I mean, that's like crazy. I blocked him, obviously. You just don't want.
You got that many teachers and that many kids. Like, how many kids and how many parents probably then had voices and opinions about? Oh my God!
Well, to be fair, it didn't make any difference to them because the parents didn't know me. I'd never met any parents.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So this was just someone else. Okay.
Yeah. So the fact that there was a change of ownership structure really made no difference whatsoever to the parents. It made no difference to the staff either. I mean, I didn't have that relationship where they were going to miss me.
So, I appreciate you sharing this story, man, because like it's That's the real stuff, right? It's like, I mean, it's totally.
But I did 48 deals, with the 5 before COVID. So 53 in the group very, very quickly. And it really sharpened up my sort of acquisition skills.
I can imagine.
And I know property leases inside out and backwards. So, I learned a lot of new stuff during that period as well.
So when you're talking to current business owners, I mean, people that listen in too, obviously, is given that whole journey, how do you help people think through, is it worth it? What's the right business? Like, what's kind of the right recipe for you that equals success, maybe for yourself, and then how that then translates into how you're talking to other people?
Yeah, I think you've got to clearly define what your goal is and what you're prepared to do to get there. And I got dragged into operations of this huge business because we didn't have a strong management team. So we were always playing catch up, trying to recruit people, recruiting them. The recruitment didn't work out, never really getting that team together. So what I say to people now is have a very clear idea of where you're going and the people that you need on the journey, and get the people before the journey's underway. Because when the journey's underway, it's too late to go and get the people, or you're kind of distracted by so many other things. And decide what it is that you're good at. And I've told you for the third time now, I'm not good with the people. I'm not good with operations. I'm the person who can say, you know what? Let's go and buy 20 manufacturing companies. Let's make it happen. And I can make that happen. And I can do that faster than anyone. I can make that happen. But I don't want to get involved with operating a manufacturing company and talking to the staff and dealing with the managers because I just don't know enough about it, but I can do the deals. So I think probably this has been an interesting personal journey for me because I know now that with complete certainty what I'm good at and what I'm not good at.
How does it make you feel?
Which part?
Like that clarity.
Oh, the clarity. Well, I feel that I should have got. I'm 51 years old, and I should have realized this maybe 20 years ago.
do you think there? And I totally get it, man. Do you think there's any other way to figure it out, though?
Rather than experience,
right?
No, I know a lot of people do personality profiling to sort of to understand their strengths and their weaknesses. I've never done that. Maybe I should have done. But I think that experience is the best teacher of everything.
I agree too, Jonathan. And the reason I was asking the question is a few weeks ago, I just got done with a little mini series about like finding your purpose and just the whole like, why are we doing this? I mean, obviously the money's got to be part of it, but then there's all the other stuff. And I don't know if there's any other way to then experience shit you don't ever want to do. Cause like the only reason you never want to do it is because you did it. And then, or like the experience of it, like I have not bought 48 daycare centers, man. So like, I don't know if that's my gig or not because I haven't done it. And it's kind of like that mini series we were talking a lot about. Is there a way to actually find your purpose without using the cliche version of it, but like the happiness, the fulfillment, the clarity of your right skill sets with the right people without going through all the crap, man. And I just don't know if it's possible.
I think you need to feel it, don't you? Because quite often there are things in life that we put off thinking that we're not going to enjoy them. And then we do it and we go, that was amazing. So
right.
Whether it's trying out a new sport or going somewhere new, you think, I don't want to go to I never wanted to go to that country. And then you go and you say, this is amazing. I want to live here. So you don't know until you try, do you? And I think a lot of people don't try enough things. They live in a Groundhog Day loop of the same day, week, month, year of their life again and again. So trying new things, I think, is really important, and pushing those boundaries and not being afraid to fail, but also protecting yourself so that if you don't get it as right as you wanted to get it right, that it doesn't kill you, emotionally, financially, and so forth.
Exclamation point, underline, highlight to that last comment, man.
Yeah.
That was fantastic. This has been an absolute blast and an honor, Jonathan. 2 final questions for you. The first one, the word intentional. I love asking people's definition of this because I've done it for a couple hundred times now. Name of the show, obviously. So curious of what does the word intentional mean for you?
Well, my immediate association is with is focus and clarity. And what I've always seen is that the people who have the focus and the clarity on a clear goal with a route to getting there succeed. Where the people who don't have that focus, that clarity, that intention, they don't.
Oh, that's beautiful, man. I love it. Last question is, where can people find more of you, your material, all the other media stuff that you got going on?
Sure. YouTube's the best place. So if you type my name into YouTube, you should be able to find me pretty quickly. I've got about 200 videos all about buying a business, interviews with people I've trained to buy businesses. You can even see behind the scenes of all those businesses that I bought during the pandemic. You can see me getting stressed on these sort of fly on the wall documentary type videos.
That's awesome, Jonathan. Hey, my friend, I appreciate you so much for coming on the show and spending time with us. It's been a lot of fun.
Thank you so much, Ryan. Much appreciated.